He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Welcome back to the Ministry of Truth. I am number one host because, well, I was started the number one this day, and I'm going to end the number one today. Now, before we get to anything, obviously we know I got to pay my sponsors, which I have no sponsors, but if I did have sponsors, they would probably be something like this. Because, I could make money off of people because of this. So, with that being said,
plain sight. It can be in your neighborhood, in your car. It's the disease that's hiding in plain sight. It can be in your neighborhood, in your car, or even in your bed. That's right. It's called toxic masculinity, and over 40% of men are affected every day. Worst of all, toxic masculinity is contagious. So if you're infected, you need to know right away so you can avoid spreading it to your friends and your family.
well,
Are you or a loved one suffering from toxic masculinity? Look out for these warning signs. Even the faintest whisper of facial hair. If you have a mustache, schedule a checkup. If you find a goatee on your face, consider going to the emergency room. If you have a full beard, well, it's probably too late for you. Mowing the lawn instead of letting your wife do it for the sake of equality. Oof, not good. Let your wife break the lawn mowing glass ceiling today. Eating meat on occasion. A disease like toxic masculinity can quickly change your diet. If you find yourself leaving your vegan avocado quinoa toast smoothies untouched in favor of wolfing down some bacon-wrapped bacon, you might have toxic masculinity. Throwing a professional wrestler off a steel cage right through the announcer's table. Men who suddenly look around and find that they're tossing a professional wrestler off a steel cage to plummet right through the announcer's table are at high risk of developing toxic masculinity. If a man in your life is suffering from this symptom, encourage him to stop wrestling in the WWE immediately. Holding the door open for a woman once in a while. Wow. This one is really bad.
That's still...
You need to do better if you're going to beat this thing. One way to fight this symptom is to slam the door right in a woman's face and scream, "Equality!" through the glass.
No.
When she glares at you, try it today.
Not bad, Mom.
Yelling stuff about freedom and charging into battle wearing blue face paint. If you find yourself charging into battle against the English wearing blue face paint of the 14th century, you might be beyond medical help. Do all of society a favor and get yourself drawn and quartered so no one else catches this contagious illness. Thinking about the Roman Empire, even once. Even thinking about the Roman Empire one time can be a deadly omen. Further stages of this disease can cause men to think about worse things, like the Galactic Empire, the Kingdom of Gondor, or the Imperium of Man. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only toxic masculinity. And finally, being a man who does not hate himself. This is the most telling sign. If you're a biological male and you don't hate yourself, toxic masculinity is already coursing through your veins.
Oh, God,
if there's going to be any hope of recovery, you need to begin hating yourself today. If you or your man are showing one or more of these symptoms, contact your medical professional today. Get help before it's too late. If you think of any other symptoms of toxic masculinity, leave them in the comments down below. This is CigarPage.com, the independent American-owned home of the free and land of massive savings. If you're a Bud Light drinking soy boy who hates freedom, then go ahead and shop with the commie pinkos and lowlifes known as our competition. If not, we invite you to try this top-rated premium.
Oh, fucking cigars. All right. So I bet y'all wonder why I have you gathered here today. Well, I'm here to run a retraction on one of my stories, which actually I'm kind of okay with because I was very skeptical about running the story, and you guys know why, because I had no real way to actually verify this. And the main thing I was going through Twitter, I went through a Tel Aviv news source, I listened to the Biden administration because he came out and said it on the world stage. What did Joe Biden say? Well, let's take a look. Actually, we're not going to look at Joe Biden. We're going to go straight to the article because I don't like the build-up. I just want y'all to see it right away. So, what we actually know about the viral report of beheaded babies in Israel. Now, this one I took very, very, very personal when I first heard this, and it's why I tried to run the story, but I didn't want to at the same time because I didn't completely trust it. But reports that Israeli soldiers discovered babies that had been beheaded are circulating on the social and traditional media outlets around the world. The Israel Defense Forces invited a foreign journalist to see the aftermath of a massacre by Hamas militants as the Kibbutz on Tuesday. Guy Chiefs correspondent Stuart Ramsey was among those, and to go and see stretcher barriers bringing out small children. God damn, bringing out a small child and a basketball court with bodies lined up in the black body bags. But in her TV reports, one journalist from the Tel Aviv-based news station I-24 said a soldier had told her that they had witnessed bodies of babies with their heads cut off. In a statement to Sky News, the IDF said, "We cannot confirm any numbers. What happened in Kibbutz Kfar Aza is a massacre in which women, children, and toddlers and elderly were brutally butchered in an ISIS way of action." Interesting, right? But I love you. And this is why I get skeptical a lot, because what's the biggest way to pull on American heartstrings? Red-blooded American heartstrings. Involve kids. Now, the mainstream media, as you'll see, and Joe Biden will push this. And then, honestly, it starts to be believable. And then people are like, wait a second. We fucked up. And now we have to retract it. So let's get to this. Joe Biden remarks made at the Jewish committee's leaders yesterday. Now, news travels fast. And, well, Joe Biden's got a lot of explaining to do.
Folks, I came first of all to say thank you. Thank you to all of you in this room. You've not only cared, but you've been breaking your neck.
Yes and no, Bullhand. One is a air group carrier, and the other is an HMS. It's it's a floating hospital.
The last couple of years to deal with this overall issue of anti-Semitism. And I know many of you are personally impacted by what's happened in Israel. There are thousands of dual citizens, maybe some of your relatives that are there. And Doug, I want to thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of our administration to combat anti-Semitism. And I apologize, I've been on the phone around the clock with our friends around the world, quite frankly, discussing what's going on in Israel. And I want you to know that I want to thank you as well for all of you as well for working, the work you're doing to bring comfort and in this moment of grief for those who are grieving as well. And you'll read this weekend in synagogue, the Torah teaches us that God made stars to, quote, give light on the earth and separate light from darkness. Give light on the earth and separate light from darkness. You know, it's been hard to find that light during the darkness of these past few days. When terrorist groups like Hamas brought not only terror, but sheer evil to the world, evil that echoes the worst and matches, in some cases exceeds the worst atrocities of ISIS. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered in Israel. By the way, I've been speaking.
How many in
a number of
Palestine.
Israeli leaders, a number of leaders around the world, leaders in the region as well. And, among those who have been victimized this evil, who've been killed, are at least 22 American citizens. This attack was a campaign of pure cruelty, not just hate, but pure cruelty against the Jewish people.
As of right now, the Ayatollah has come out and said no, and that they do not condone what had happened this past weekend. So whether or not it's true or not, but it also came from the Iranian spokesman, and I believe Hezbollah.
And I would argue it's the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust.
Well, that wasn't a day.
One of the worst chapters in human history that reminded us all that expression I learned from my dad early on: silence is complicity. Silence is complicity. It really is. And I want you to know, I think you've already figured it out, I refuse to be silent, and I know you refuse to be silent as well. And you all, I know you're here with my senior staff. You all represent a voice that America has to hear. America can't be silent. We not only reject terrorism, but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond rejecting terrorism. I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu for I don't know how many times, but this morning, and already we're surging additional military assistance to the Israeli Defense Force, including ammunition, interceptors to replenish the Iron Dome, and we've moved the U.S. carrier fleet to the Eastern Mediterranean, and we're sending more fighter jets there in that region, and made it clear.
Fighter jets go on those fleet
to
ships.
The Iranians, be careful.
I think they can handle.
I want to make it real clear. We're working on every aspect of the hostage crisis in Israel, including deploying experts to advise and assist with recovery efforts. Now, the press is going to shout to me, and many of you are, that, what are you doing to get these folks home?
Here's what a lot of people don't know. We actually have military bases in Turkey. So if we really needed to get there fast, it's going to happen.
If I told you I wouldn't be able to get them home, folks, there's a lot we're doing. A lot we're doing. I have not given up hope of bringing these folks home. But the idea that I'm going to stand here before you and tell you what I'm doing is bizarre. So I hope you understand how bizarre I think it would be to try to answer that question.
The American
we're going to
people
work closely with our partners in Israel and around the world to ensure Israel has what it needs to defend its citizens, its cities, and to respond to these attacks. As I said yesterday, my commitment to Israel's security and the safety of the Jewish people is unshakable. The United States has Israel's back, and I have yours as well, both at home and abroad. You can see the pain in some of your faces. I walked into this room. You okay, kiddo?
It's because we had to see you.
Well, your fear for family, friends back in Israel. You worry about kids being targeted in school, about going about their daily lives. You're hurt by the downplaying of Hamas's atrocities and blaming Israel. This is unconscionable. And I've asked members of my team, including Homeland.
It goes both ways, and this is what really makes me I really rethought this whole thing before bringing it out. Both sides committed war crimes. Israel's doing it right now by withholding humanitarian aid to the Palestinians. Not the Hamas, but the Palestinians. The ones that weren't doing anything wrong. Just like the concert goers weren't doing anything wrong. Attack the actual people that fight back. Killing innocent people, women, children, they're doing the same thing. Whether or not they're being beheaded or not, obviously that was being told by mainstream media and debunked numerous times today. So, I'm glad sometimes I do wait and sometimes I don't. I kind of wish I waited a little longer.
Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas and Attorney General Garland to work intensively with our Jewish community partners so many of you here to set up security around Jewish life in America, identify, prevent, and disrupt emerging threats that occur. We're also going to continue to condemn and combat anti-Semitism at every single turn, at every turn.
Like?
The past few days have been a solemn reminder that hate never goes away. Hold on a second, I used to think you could defeat hate, that you can make it, all it does is go underground. It just goes underground, it doesn't go away. It only hides until it's given a little oxygen, a little bit of oxygen. And that's why I've secured the largest ever increase in funding for physical security for nonprofits, including synagogues, Jewish community centers, Jewish day schools. And in May, we released the first ever national strategy to counter anti-Semitism with the input from many of you in this room. Many of you in this room helped write that. It's the most ambitious, comprehensive effort to combat anti-Semitism in American history, in all of American history. And we're aggressively implementing it. But we must all do our part and forcefully speak out against anti-Semitism and push back against the attempts to deny or distort the facts. To make clear, there is no place for hate in America.
Obviously, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to read your comment, and you're going to be surprised why I'm going to read it, because America needs to stop financing and supplying both sides of all conflicts around the world. We need to bring America back home and stop trying to rule the world. Just my opinion. Well, Steve-O, you're in the right place. You listen to my channel, that's all you're going to hear. I'm saying. And I've been there, done that, and, well, I think the t-shirts are in my closet, but nah. We don't need to be in any more endless wars. We need to stay in the home front. We need to worry about securing our border. We need to worry about our veterans. We need to worry about our homeless. We need to worry about this fucking epidemic that's killing thousands of people a year that the government refuses to acknowledge and keep allowing the shit to come through our southern border. But wait. That's okay. None of that matters. But by God, you protest against your kids not being taught sexuality in school. You're on an FBI watch list, buddy. What's up, Nanya?
Not against Jews, not against Muslims, not against anybody. And we mourn the act you and so many leaders have across the country showing us
show up in my
thousands of years of Jewish history has shown us. The enduring strength, and I mean this sincerely, the enduring strength and spirit of the Jewish community. If you excuse a point of personal privilege, you should say in the Senate. That's why I took my kids, everyone when they turned 14 years old, one at a time, put them on a plane and took them to Dachau. I wanted them to see that you could not know what was going on walking through those gates. You could not fail to understand.
Whoa. Why are you yelling at him, Joe?
As a country, what was going on. And that's a fact.
What did they do?
It had a profound impact on my children and my grandchildren. Some thought taking a 14-year-old grandchild was not a mistake, but I took them one at a time. I got 3 more to go.
Are they Jewish too?
Folks, it's important. The miracle of Israel is Israel. It's Israel itself. The hope it inspires. The light it represents to the world. And folks, I was asked
he's lost
in one of my very frank conversations with Bibi and with Herzog. So why do I feel so deeply about this? It's not about the region. I truly believe were there no Israel, no Jew in the world would be ultimately safe. It's the only ultimate guarantee. The only ultimate guarantee. The only ultimate guarantee.
Did that son of a bitch really just say if there was no Israel, no Jew would be safe? Well, fuck.
And folks, because of you, and I mean this sincerely, because
what's up, Midwest?
Because of the intensity and the intellect and the brilliance you bring to this cause, I think we have a chance to end this in a way that it makes it very difficult for it to be repeated. I want to thank you for your leadership. And as I said, there's a lot to talk about. But I'm really, quite frankly, concerned
About
as to,
oh shit,
it's hard to talk about this without detail.
system shut down.
And it's contrary to our interests to let out the detail of what we're going on. I mean, this is just round the clock, as you understand. You fully understand. But, you know, I've known
Was she
Bibi
doing the
for
salt shaker, salt pepper
over
shaker?
40 years. A very frank relationship. I know him well. And the one thing that I did say, that it is really important that Israel, with all the anger, frustration, and just, I don't know how to explain it,
I know you
that
don't.
exists,
Check the
is
teleprompter.
that they operate by the rules of war. The rules of war. And there are rules of war. And I believe Israel is doing everything in its power to pull the country together, stay on the same page, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure Israel succeed, and God willing, to bring home those Americans who are in harm's way. I'm going to let you all have the private conversation you've been having, which you should continue.
Which
to
means
have.
no one was paying attention to you.
It just came to basically, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I give you my word as a Biden. Thank you.
That means nothing.
Thank you for the intensity of your support. It matters. It matters that Americans see what's happening. I mean, I've been doing this a long time.
57
I
years.
never
we know.
really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
You didn't see him. That's
I
a
never
lie.
thought I'd ever. Anyway.
You just lied to the American people.
But there are countries in the region that are trying to be of some help, including Arab nations.
Let them help
Trying to
then.
be of some help. So,
They don't need us.
Anyway,
Listen, Israel could literally take on Iran by itself and fucking destroy them. You think they need us to take on a terrorist group that's already pretty much being choked out?
Mr. President, where do you draw strength in this region?
Please can't answer questions.
From my faith, my faith that at the core of every human being is a spark of humanity,
Door's opening.
decency. It's got to
You
be
need to get him out of
touched.
there.
It's got to be spoken to. That's what you do. That's why you're here. It's not about, revenge. It's about
Right, Becky?
decency. Just basically decent, just basic decency. Treating people with a sense of, I don't know quite how to say it, but I know we can overcome this. I know we can overcome this. Look, I don't know anything
Has no
about the
idea
kind
what
of
he's
losses
doing.
talking here, but I know a little bit like to feel loss.
This is elderly
Lose
abuse,
people
and
you
it's sad.
adore. Get a phone call saying they're gone. I get that part. Not the same, but I get the part. And what I've learned is that as we persevere, we can grow. And the day will come.
I get
when
it.
The memory.
You guys watch me enough, you see me do that exact same thing. But we all know why I'm doing it. I have a good, legit reason. Then again, Joe does too. It's called dementia.
That person or those persons bring a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eye. It will happen. It will happen. But God, it takes a long time sometimes. And when it's born out of something that has been anything from a mistake to a vicious intent, it varies in degrees. I'm not saying I know the same. But I just, look, I mean, I'll never forget. Well, I
You
won't
just
go
did.
into that. Anyway, I just think that if we stay true to our values, pursue with every inch and every bit of our energy to get this right, we can bury this again and bring people back, and bring people home, and bring
You're
it
right,
together.
Becky. I get that one.
I think we can
I watch him
change
a lot. The interpreter, just fucking, they lose their mind.
the Middle East. But then again, I have been referred to as a congenital optimist. And I'm not going to answer any questions of you guys right now, but my team here knows when the press is done, they'll
Wow.
talk more directly to you. But even then, they're not going to be able to tell you all that we're doing and all that's going on. So,
Holy shit. He just admit that?
We say thank you. 80 years ago this week, a group of 400 rabbis came to Washington, hoping to meet with Franklin Delano Roosevelt and appeal to him to act to rescue the Jews who were being persecuted in Europe. And they were refused meeting with President Roosevelt. They were refused entry to the White House. And the fact that we are here today, and you have spoken as the President of the United States so clearly in support of Israel, so clearly in support of the Jewish people, and welcome leaders and representatives of the Jewish community into the White House for this discussion, shows what a dramatic distance we've traveled in these United States, and we as the Jewish community are blessed to live today in these United States, and we thank you for your leadership and your moral fires.
Please. No, sit down, please. Thank you. Thank God now that fucking seizure-inducing segment's over. At least I stuck with you guys, because that shit was killing me. I just wanted to get to the point where he fucking lied. And he sounds like he lied more than one time during that damn press conference. And now from one good actor, can't really say good, from one dirtbag actor to another. Guys know Anthony Blinken is in Israel right now. Well, Anthony Blinken is over there trying to let them know, we've got your back, we've got money. Well, we don't have money, but we got money.
He is in Israel as we speak. He's taking questions right now, including on what we're doing about those 25 Americans held who have died.
Now, when I say he should get an Academy Award for this shit, let's watch it all the way through first, and you'll see why.
Obviously, and the other 24 or close to 24 who are now held hostage. It's 17 officially. Reports that number is increasing. Let's listen in.
For easing some of these conditions or for restraint as we expect a ground offensive. And if you allow me just one thing that's been reported just recently. There was a report in the Washington Post that the United States and Qatar have decided to slow down or suspend the access that Iran has to the $6 billion that's been put in the special account. Could you say if this is accurate, and if it is, could you explain whether this is a slowdown or something more formal than that? Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Sean. So we did see photographs, videos that the Israeli government shared with us. Some I think has actually already been seen in public media. Others were new to me, and I think new to our team. It's hard to find the right words. It's beyond what anyone would ever want to imagine, much less actually see and, God forbid, experience. A baby, an infant, riddled with bullets.
Seen it.
Soldiers beheaded. Young people burned alive
that
in their cars.
Not that part.
Or in their hideaway rooms. I could go on.
Keep going.
It's simply depravity in the worst imaginable way. It almost defies comprehension. And as I've been saying, to me, in the most immediate future, harkens back to ISIS. And
Here's the thing, Larp. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. Can't disagree with anything you just said.
Some of the very things we saw.
But it's true.
When it was on its rampage, that thankfully was stopped. So.
And the way I see this, they couldn't use Ukraine to keep Biden in office. But what they're going to do, they're going to use this specific conflict right here to try and keep Biden in office, because their only choice right now is the DNC has to ride with Biden because that's in their literature. They could do exactly what they're about to do in Ukraine. They canceled the fucking elections in Ukraine because they are currently in a conflict. What's going to stop the United States from doing the same thing? I mean, are we a democratic republic? Are we a republic? Doesn't matter, man. They've proven they can shut us down in 2020. They've proven they can shut us up before Twitter got bought by Elon, which still is kind of iffy. But if they can do that, then they're going to do it again and again and again, because you keep doing it and people are going to think, oh, that shit's normal. That shit's normal. And then that election cycle is going to keep going and keep going. And eventually they're just going to turn it into a monarchy or a dictatorship, which, you know, with people like AOC makes sense.
I think for any human being to see this, it's really beyond almost any.
Yes, they actually did a lot about that, LARP, and a lot of the other conflicts, surprisingly enough.
Anything that we can.
I don't either.
Comprehend, digest.
And I don't trust them for that exact same reason, LARP. Especially when Skynet or whatever the fucking not Neuralink, his damn satellites can connect you to it. Now, it's not often I agree with Bernie Sanders, but sometimes you hear things and you're like, they make you stop and think, was this fucking clown right? When I think about the U.S. siding with either Israel or the other side, because we've got people on both sides that want to support both sides, let's stop supporting war. It's been said before today. I've said it numerous times. It's, what did I say? America, make America. I fucking forgot that. And this guy's a huge problem with another issues going on over there too. How long's BB been in charge? Does anyone know? I'm sorry, guys.
It's going to change, but right now we think the number that we know are, or we believe are held hostage is very small, like less than a handful. But that could change over time. We're going to get more information every single day.
Florida Congressman Greg Steube joins us now. Congressman, you are an Army vet. You understand Army logistics, military logistics. How do we rescue these 17 potentially plus, potentially minus people, assuming they are still alive?
He's going to tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Should we send in U.S. Special Forces to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. We should send in our guys to go get our people out.
That 14-hour recall is coming up pretty quickly.
If they're being held hostage by a terrorist regime, would be un-American not to do that. We in Congress haven't been getting reports that that's a plan, but I would hope that it is. I would hope that they wouldn't tell members of Congress what their intentions were, but absolutely, we should be going in and rescuing American citizens. I mean, the main challenge is, do we know where they are? Do we know where they're being held? So I'm not privy to all that intel, but I would hope that our intelligence folks and our DOD folks are doing everything we can to rescue American citizens that have been captured by Hamas.
Really? Because you guys weren't doing that in Afghanistan. We had people like Tim Kennedy and Glenn Beck using their own money and security to go over there and pick up American citizens. You think they care about this? As in the words of Hillary Clinton, what difference does it make?
Reaction to something Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish, said. He's criticizing.
Honestly, Larp, I don't know who Todd is, so I couldn't answer that. What's up, Wolf?
Israel right now. He said the targeting of civilians is a war crime, no matter who does it.
Yep.
Israel's blanket denial of food, water, and other necessities to Gaza is a serious violation of international law and will do nothing but harm innocent civilians.
Yeah, look how far we've fallen as a nation where Democrats are siding with terrorists who just murdered over 1,000 Israelis, murdered Americans, beheaded children. The videos and pictures that you have seen of the grotesque and gruesome.
Hear me out, guys. So they're talking about the murder of innocent men and women and children. Yes, I acknowledge that happened at that festival. But what do they do in Stride? They're leveling buildings inside that little Gaza area. They're leveling buildings. If you level buildings, you're destroying and killing pretty much anyone inside that building, to include hospitals. You're not letting anyone in and out. Some of those buildings hold innocent men, women, and children, and some of those buildings probably hold our American citizens that are supposedly kidnapped. You ever fucking think about that? You're letting Israel do this, right? You're supporting Israel doing this, right? And we're paying for this with our taxpayer money. Because we just gave them the missiles.
Of terrorists are met with Democrats not condemning that, but feeling bad that civilians are getting caught in the middle when Israel responds in kind, as they should. I 100% support our ally, Israel. I think they need to do everything that they can to push back on terrorism. And I commend Netanyahu. He's one of the few world leaders that's actually acting like a leader. We don't have that in the presidency in the White House right now. We still have Americans stuck in Afghanistan, for crying out loud. So I surely hope that I'm glad that we have a leader in
thought I was lying.
I'm sad that we don't have that type of leadership right here in the United States.
Yeah, that statement from Bernie Sanders, especially in light of the fact that he is Jewish. I read that 3 times. I was like, am I reading this wrong? It makes no sense.
Can I ask another question about the hostages? Do you think that Antony Blinken is over in Israel right now, and he's going to be meeting with the Palestinian president? Do you think that diplomacy, getting these hostages back through diplomacy, is an option?
No, absolutely not. This is a terrorist organization that have decapitated babies and are posting this type of thing online. We should be using the full force of the military to get our people out. We should be using whatever we can to help the Israelis to push back on terrorism that they're experiencing in Gaza, and it's war, so there is going to be collateral damage to that. People like ourselves in the military, we try to minimize collateral damage as much as possible when we do operations and when we do missions, but when you're dealing with this type of threat and this type of terrorism,
there's a few instances where we've had to go out to certain houses in Iraq in the middle of the night because our artillery strikes were off. Not by a little, not by a medium-sized amount, by a whole fucking kilometer. No big deal. No big deal. We had to pay a lot of money to that house, that farm owner. And then we did it again a week later.
You have to push back strongly and defend your people.
All eyes on D.C. today. Here at home, the House is going to gavel in at noon today. Republicans selecting Steve Scalise as their candidate for Speaker in a private meeting yesterday.
Yeah, but how close was it?
When does this get wrapped up? Is Steve Scalise the Speaker once it does get wrapped up? And does Steve Scalise have your vote?
That's a great question. I think at noon today they'll recess again. If you just read different members' posts on social media and what reporters are reporting, there's still between 12, 15, 20 members that aren't supporting Scalise on the floor. If you go back, let's just take one step back. There was 96% of the conference that supported Kevin McCarthy. 4% took him out. And now we're in the current situation where Scalise got 113 votes out of 221 in conference, barely a majority. So we've kind of taken a step backwards. We took out a guy that had 96% of the conference support to a guy that has barely a majority of the conference support. I actually think we're in a worse situation now than we were last week. And Scalise is going to have to run around and try to garner the support. But there's a number of people that have already said they're not supporting him on the floor. And I wish that we would have stayed in conference yesterday and tried to figure this out instead of breaking conference and everybody going their separate ways.
So 20 seconds to Fox and Friends, but does Scalise have your vote?
I supported Jordan yesterday. I support Jordan today. At this point, I'm supporting Jim Jordan on the floor.
There you have it.
All of that shit he spoke about Scalise says, we need to get Scalise net. This dude voted for Jim Jordan. I don't blame him, but I wouldn't have come out and said all that extra bullshit. So there's a senator from Kentucky who's very outspoken against not being pro-war, how we need to stop endless funding to endless wars. And people always look at him like he's crazy. They state the guy's not a doctor. He does eye surgery. Pretty sure that's a doctor. He came out against everybody's Lord and Savior, Dr. Anthony Fauci. And here he is a couple years ago, laying into Lindsey Graham. And the only reason I want to start a case is because Lindsey Graham and him have been going back for a while, and it's coming to light again. What the hell did I just do?
Madam President.
The senator from Kentucky.
What's up, Cars?
The best part of any debate is when you see people twisting themselves in knots, going against their own alleged principles to get their desired results. Today, the subject is war powers. The hawks and the neocons somehow want you to believe, in contrast to all logic, that the President of the United States has the unitary power to go to war anytime he wants, anywhere, free from interference from Congress. That's their stated position. Anytime war comes up. Yet today, in the NDAA, they say they now want a president that cannot leave a war without their permission. How absurd is that? They believe that a president has the power to go to war anywhere, anytime, but when a president tries to remove troops, they say, oh, no. What we really want are 535 generals in Congress to tell him he can't leave a war. How absurd is that? It's exactly the opposite of what both the Constitution and logic would dictate. When Congress tried to impose time limits on troop engagements during the Iraq War, the neocons squawked that it would be a mistake to have 535 generals. They said the execution of the war was a prerogative of the president until the president decided he wanted to leave a war. During the Bush administration, Dick Cheney and a team of legal apologists argued for something they call the unitary executive theory. Professor Edelson at American University describes this theory of an all-powerful commander-in-chief concept. This unitary executive theory claimed to justify effectively unchecked presidential power over the use of military force, the detention and interrogation of prisoners, extraordinary rendition, and intelligence gathering. According to the unitary executive theory, since the Constitution assigns the president all of the executive power, he can set aside laws that attempt to limit this power over national security. This is an enormous power. Critics say that it effectively puts the president above the law. But this is the belief of the neocons. They say the president is all-powerful until they say, well, unless the president's trying to stop a war, then we must shackle the president with rules and regulations and make sure that he cannot leave a war unless Congress says so. That's what the NDAA will do this year. Now, these same people who advocated for virtually unlimited commander-in-chief powers, have put forth limits in this bill to restrain a president from removing troops from a country. Effectively, these neocons put forth a belief that the commander-in-chief has virtually unlimited power to initiate war, but they are just fine with hamstringing and preventing.
Believe it or not, they were totally against Trump pulling out. Well, actually, you guys know that, especially General Milley.
The commander-in-chief from ending a war. Hypocrisy, anyone? Without a shred of embarrassment, these neocons happily constrain a president from leaving a war theater, while they also simultaneously argue for a president that can start war anytime, anywhere across the globe without congressional authorization. Our founding fathers would be appalled. Primary among our founders' concerns was that the power to initiate war not be in the hands of one person. As Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, the executive is the branch of government most prone to war. Therefore, the Constitution, with studied care, vested the war-making powers in the legislature. To our founders, initiation of war was the sole prerogative of Congress. But a great deal of discretion was given to the president in Article 2 to execute the war. The neocons forever believed in this discretion. They said the war shouldn't be fought by 535 generals in Congress. We should give the president the freedom and power to execute the war. And largely they're correct, until they pop their heads up today and say, unless the president wants to stop a war, then we take it all back. What we really want is the president who can't execute a war or execute the end of a war without the permission of Congress. Likely our founders would have agreed with the common complaint that we don't need 535 generals in Congress. In other words, success in war requires most decisions on executing the war to be in the hands of one person, the president. Even I, who have been opposed to most of the recent overseas activities and wars, even I believe that once Congress initiates it, most of the decisions should be made by the president. So the decision to go to war requires the consensus, the initiation, the beginning of war requires the consensus of 535 members of Congress under the Constitution. It's very clear. They debated it over and over, and they said initiation, declaration of war should be done by Congress.
Right.
But the execution of the war would largely be left up to the president. Many current and former members of Congress have agreed. Representative Liz Cheney has argued that the nature of military and foreign policy demand the unity of the singular executive, and that the founders certainly did not intend, nor does history substantiate, the idea that Congress should legislate specific limits on the president's powers in wartime. Liz Cheney, who is also, ironically, the author of this amendment to the NDAA, she said we shouldn't limit the president's powers in times of war, and then she authors a limitation on the president removing troops from war. So which is it? I guess she's only for this unitary power. She's only for this all-powerful commander-in-chief when they fight war. But if a president wants to end a war, oh no, Congress has to stop them at all costs from ending a war. I think what comes out of this is that the neoconservative philosophy isn't so much about a unitary executive, isn't so much about an all-powerful.
They got around that. Not having to go to war, but still get military authorization. It's Ukraine. We never officially joined war and went to war with Russia, but we've given Ukraine the same exact money and weapons that we would have used if we did try to go to war with Russia. So essentially, they got around it.
Commander-in-chief, the philosophy of these people is about war and substantiating war and making sure that it becomes and is perpetual war. Senator Graham said, the one thing he has been consistent on is that there's one commander-in-chief, not 535. These are his words. I believe this commander-in-chief and all future commanders-in-chief.
Considering what he was able to do in Israel between the two. He actually had them with a good line of communication.
Are unique in our Constitution and have an indispensable role to play when it comes to protecting the homeland. If we have 535 commanders in chief, then we are going to be less safe. I guess, except for this bill, which actually creates 535 generals in Congress to tell the president, not just this president, and some of it is anger, it's partisan anger, people don't like President Trump, but this will bind all future presidents. This isn't just about this president. So when Lindsey Graham says we don't want 530 commanders in chief, if this is his belief, he should vote against this bill, because this bill creates 535 commanders in chief. The late Senator McCain said it would be a very serious situation where we now have 535 commanders in chief. The president of the United States.
Maybe it was business. He knew how to talk to people. Treat them like individuals, not like look down on them like good old Joe.
States is the only commander in chief. Senator Inhofe, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, has said, we don't need 535 generals in Congress telling our troops how to win this fight, except for we are going to pass a bill that I assume all of these folks will vote for that actually creates 535 generals in Congress to say to the president, to this one or any president, that he can't leave the theater in Afghanistan without their permission. It's a tragedy, it's hypocrisy, and it's a terrible bill. Of course,
the reason they wanted that is because, like I said, Donald Trump had made a deal with the Taliban, like, listen, we will absolutely move everything out of this country by this date. We promise you nothing past this date, as long as you leave American troops alone. It worked. They made the deal. Because we knew we weren't going to win the war at that point. But what did Joseph R. Biden do? He said, fuck it. I was going to do it overnight. We're going to say we're going to bullshit them and get it early. Then we're going to push it to August. And then we're just going to pull out of nowhere. Completely.
There's also former Vice President Dick Cheney, who is adamant that the War Powers Resolution, which requires the president to simply report to Congress on matters of war, was unconstitutional and an infringement of the president's authority as commander-in-chief. Senator Alexander has also said there's a reason why we don't have 535 commanders-in-chief or 100 commanding generals each saying, charge down this street or over that hill. I tend to agree. Except for it seems to be one-sided. These people seem to believe that we shouldn't have 535 generals in Congress when it's about initiating war. But when it comes to removing troops from the battle, when it comes from finally coming home after America's longest war in Afghanistan, they all say, oh, no, you're wrong. We're not going to let you come home. We are going to restrict and restrain the powers of the commander-in-chief because we don't want to end the Afghan war. It seems as if the only thing you can conclude is they really don't care about their theory of an all-powerful commander-in-chief. They care more about perpetuating the Afghan war. Until recently, this chorus of voices sang of nothing but the almighty endless powers that presidents have as commander-in-chief. That is, until a president arrived on the scene who wanted to reduce overseas troop levels and end America's longest war in Afghanistan. Then the promoters of a strong commander-in-chief suddenly jumped ship.
What she's getting to, Bat Mom, talked about it this morning. Tomorrow there is a worldwide jihad going out, called out by the Hamas. They put it out on Twitter and Telegram. So either one of three things is going to happen. Nothing. A bunch of synagogues are about to get attacked. Or with the fear of something getting done, Muslims are going to be attacked. I mean, just, you never know anymore. Our government just fucking doesn't. You know they don't care about us. We're just pawns. Like we've always been. So this is Lindsey Graham getting pissed off because Rand Paul doesn't want to send money to Ukraine.
Ready? Madam President.
Senator from South Carolina.
I'd like unanimous consent to enter into a colloquy with my colleagues, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Blumenthal.
Now, this is a year after that
Without
last.
objection.
Thank you. We will get into this in a minute, but I want to respond to something that was said just a few minutes ago. What would it cost America if Putin continues to slaughter the Ukraine and gets away with it? What kind of world do you want to live in? Let's see if I've got this right. I can understand not wanting to get involved in wars. If you've ever been in one, if you've ever been in a war zone with any time period, you understand war is a horrible thing.
Have
If you've
you,
ever been in
Lindsey?
the military, you understand some of your buddies don't come back when you have wars. But what I don't understand is this idea that not only are we not going to engage in a war against a thug and a bully like Putin, but when somebody like Ukraine is fighting like tigers, we're not going to help them either. So this idea about this aid package costing too much, put it in context of what happens to the world if Putin continues to rewrite the map of Europe. If we don't get Ukraine right, then China will invade Taiwan, and 90% of all the semiconductors and high-end chips come out of Taiwan. Why do you...
Wait, that never happened. This was a year ago. But wait, what if we send money over there and help Taiwan too for an attack? That's 3 world funds we can be paying for. Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I'll sign up for that.
You have the cops, because if people go up and down the streets
right?
breaking into stores and ransacking the community, nobody wants to live there.
People
I'd
wanna
rather
go in
have the
there?
rule of law versus the rule of
Yeah,
gun.
different question.
Sometimes you got to pay a price. The Ukrainians are paying the ultimate price. They're fighting like tigers. They're dying by the thousands to stand up to an enemy of the United States and mankind. Putin is a war criminal by any reasonable definition. And if you think he is satisfied with Ukraine, you're miscalculating him like we did in the last century with Hitler. In June of last year, Putin talked about the Russian Empire being recreated. Well, it's just not Ukraine that he considers a legal fiction. It'd be Moldova. And when you look at his view of recreating possibly the former Soviet Union, there are NATO nations in his crosshairs. What does it matter to the United States if Europe is in a constant state of turmoil, that you have Russia toppling one democracy after another? It means a lot to us. We can't live in a world that way, or at least I choose not to live in the world that way. To the American people, $40 billion is a lot of money. But if we can stop Putin in the Ukraine, it'd be the best money you could ever spend. Let's don't be penny wise and a pound foolish. They're running out of ammo. They're kicking the Russians' ass all over the Ukraine. They're doing the fighting on behalf of freedom itself. And we should be the arsenal of democracy. The EU should spend more. The Germans are giving lethal weapons. Everybody can do more. And there's a problem with baby formula. I'd like
General Dynamics went up $3 since yesterday.
to get more baby formula on the shelves, but letting Putin win in the Ukraine doesn't help the problem with babies here in America. If you care about raising your children, you need formula, but you need a world where you can travel and trade without chaos. Who's going to run the world in the 21st century? The communist dictatorship in China, people like Putin, or a world order where the rule of law really matters more than the rule of gun? So this package has been stalled, but it will get over the finish line.
Okay, nothing for Lockheed.
To the people in Ukraine, Senator Paul's request to have a inspector general overseeing the money actually makes sense to me. I don't know why we didn't do that before, but his argument that this package is way beyond what the market should bear misses the point of what we're engaged in here. The outcome of Ukraine matters because if you don't stop Putin there, he keeps going. This doesn't end. Have you learned nothing from World War II? Go watch a movie about World War II. How many people appeased Hitler to the point that 50 million people eventually died? Putin is not going to stop in Ukraine unless somebody stops him. Here's the good news. His army was oversold, and with the weapons we've delivered to the Ukraine, plus our allies, the Ukrainian military and citizenry are dismantling the Russian military. It would be an enormous blow for freedom, stabilize the world if we could stop Putin in Ukraine. And the Ukrainians are not asking us for soldiers, they're asking us for weapons. And if you don't think Russia under Putin is a foe to the United States and all we believe in, you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on for the last 20 years. So we have a moment in time here
A moment in time.
to go all in terms of economic assistance. Their economy is in shambles because they're under siege. They're fighting like tigers. The weapons we've given them, they put to good purpose.
All right, he's going to
The
keep.
Democrats and Republicans
So that's
are
Lindsey
now.
Graham on Rand Paul not wanting to fund Ukraine with legit reason. Now, let's see what Rand Paul has to say about the current war with Israel and these war hawks wanting more and more time at war when we've only been at war. Well, I'm sorry, we've only not been at war for like 20, 22 years of our entire country's existence. So let's continue the trend, right?
Missile attacks against the Iranian nuclear program, decimate it before they can go nuclear. What would you do?
You know, I have nothing but sympathy for the Israeli people at this point in time. I think that the primary objective at this time has to be to get the people that attacked them. They were in Gaza. Before we think about spreading this to the rest of the world, maybe we ought to think about exactly what's going on the ground there. I do think that there is immediate reaction sometimes to let's get everybody who's responsible. And without question, Iran had their hands in this. But you remember after 9/11, there were people who wanted to attack Iraq. They said Iraq caused 9/11. Turned out Iraq didn't have anything to do with 9/11. So let's see where the facts lie. Let's investigate this and let Israel need to do what they need to do, which is to have a punishing response to the people in Gaza to say no more. We're not going to let this happen again.
When you follow the money, if the money goes from the Biden administration and it goes to Tehran, and then Tehran sends it to Hamas and they use it to slaughter Israelis and Americans, what are we doing here?
Right. The question has to be is, everybody has the anger. Look, I've got the anger. I have no sympathy for these thugs pulling young women and children, shooting people point blank in the head. Nobody has sympathy for them. In fact, I think they lose sympathy for their cause by doing such horrendous, outlandish things. But at the same time, if someone says, well, we need to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon, we're going to bomb them. Well, you have to realize that there have been assassinations of nuclear scientists in Iran going on for about the last 6 to 8 years. Every time we assassinate one of them, the enrichment goes higher. We had maximum pressure sanctions. The enrichment went higher. People say they're within a week or two of enrichment. Now people say, we're going to bomb them. We're going to bomb them to smithereens. Well, when you get uranium to like 100% or 95% enrichment, you can have as much as in that little box there, and you can hide it anywhere. You can have it in 20 different places. You can have it at the base of a mountain. You can't really put them back, and you can't really bomb knowledge away. And I'm not saying you look the other way. Something will have to be done. But we have to be careful of the bomb them now, bomb them everywhere, bomb them all the time. And our founding fathers were conscious of that. They said, we need to vote on these things. No one person, no president, no one person gets to decide when war happens. And while war is a means of retribution, it isn't always pretty, and it doesn't always get exactly what we intended as well.
That is a key point. The Biden administration cannot go off half-cocked, doing whatever it is that they're planning on doing or not doing without consulting with the U.S. Congress.
Well, look what happened in Afghanistan. They decided to exit from a commercial airport. What kind of moron leaves your troops in a commercial airport? When they do, 13 of our soldiers die. You saw what Joe Biden was doing at their funeral, checking his watch after each casket went out. So what did he do in response? Everybody says, you got to do something, do something. So he bombed an aid worker. A completely innocent worker and his family was bombed out of anger, out of sheer anger. So angry, you know, I'm angry. I can't see those images without being angry and sympathetic to the Israeli people. But if you act out of anger irrationally, sometimes you do the wrong thing and make things worse. So all I ask is, you want war, you want to drop a bomb on Tehran, you don't do that like you're chewing, you know, bubble gum. This is a really, really serious thing that we need to make sure we get right before we launch into a worldwide war.
Okay, we already know we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so let's just take it one step at a time. Senator, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody go check out the book.
And I walk, chew bubble gum, and kick ass all the time. But anyway, I hope y'all are learning more and more about this whole conflict and how the media, as well as the administrations, they knew just the right strings to pull to get people really pissed off at Hamas, which they should be. But the thing is, they were trying to justify bombing Palestine because the Hamas group is there in retaliation for what happened in Israel. Now, do I think that's right? Absolutely fucking not. You need to fight fire with fire. You don't. I said that wrong. It needs to be force on force. Take it straight to the militaries. Leave the innocents out of it. Collateral damage is such a bullshit thing. But like I said, I'm not telling y'all how to think. Y'all saw exactly what I saw, and these came from the politicians and the news sources themselves. And obviously, do we know if they're lying? No. Do we know if they're telling the truth? No. Now, what did I do yesterday and today? Well, yesterday more. I overreacted. I didn't sit back and observe a lot more than I should have. And I apologize for giving you some false information. But that's why. That's why I'm telling y'all how to think. So y'all can catch me sometimes. So thank y'all for joining, every single one of you. I'm so sorry it took so long. But thank you. Have a good day. Until tomorrow.